Yeah, I've got breaking news. A brand new Spider-Man has been spotted in Marvel's Snap. That's right, the Spider-Man Brand New Day season of Snap is here, which is inspired by the upcoming movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. And everyone's favorite web slinger isn't joining the party alone. He's bringing with him two other super iconic characters from the Spider-Man universe, Aunt May and Mary Jane. It really doesn't get any bigger than that. So taking a closer look at Spider-Man Brand New Day here, he is a 1-cost 2-power card who reads movable twice. After this moves to a location, give one of your other cards there plus 1 power, even unrevealed ones, which I think is actually a really powerful effect here. That movable twice in particular means you get to utilize this plus 1 power bonus multiple times just from Spider-Man Brand New Day himself. He doesn't need any outside help. So that alone could be worth plus 2 extra power, which makes him in total kind of a 1-4 in total output. But keep in mind, he can also be moved by other cards, which is a really important distinction for this one. So you get 2 of those moves on his own, but using other things like a Madam Web, for instance, a Ghost Spider could be an extra way to get another boost there on that plus 1 power. On top of that, it's really nice that he actually can buff unrevealed cards as well. Because of the way moves happen, you stage those moves before your cards reveal, which means it doesn't have to be a card that's already in play. So you can play this down on turn 1, load up, say, a Human Torch for turn 3, plop that down, move Spider-Man over. It's actually going to buff up that unrevealed Human Torch, which of course is one of the great cards that can be scaled even further when you give it those extra power boosts. I think targets like Human Torch and Multiple Man are going to be perfect for Spider-Man Brand New Day. It's not only just that raw extra power, but then other ways to kind of keep stacking it turn after turn after turn. So Spider-Man Brand New Day becomes both a reward for moving cards, because the more you move him, the more you get that plus 1 power. It's small, but it might still be relevant in the scheme of things. But then he also becomes an enabler for other cards that really like to be moved, like those Multiple Mans and Human Torches. And I think that makes him this like supremely flexible option, because at 1 cost, you can weave him in so easily. Sometimes that's going to be on turn 1 and that could be perfect, but even if you get him down as late as turn 4, you would still have turns 5 and 6 to use those 2 built-in moves that he has access to. So anytime from 1 to 4 is perfect, but you know, who cares? Turn 5 or 6, you might still have a moment where that 2 power is meaningful, or 1 extra move here or there could be pretty nice. So flexible in cost, but also flexible in how he interacts with other move cards, right? Both setting them up, but also being a small payoff is pretty cool, particularly, you know, like a Heimdall, for instance, coming down late. Spider-Man Brand New Day is still just going to be an extra plus 1 power boost. So it all just starts to add up, and it becomes, I think, this sort of glue for move decks where this is just the perfect card to slot in that does a little bit of everything while still remaining really affordable at that 1 cost spot. Now, moving on over to Mary Jane, we have another card here, of course, that's perfect for move decks, but in a little bit of a different direction. She is a 3-cost, 3-power option with an end of turn effect. Give each of your cards that moved this turn plus 1 power. So basically at the end of turn, she's going to check, say, hey, did you move? Did you move? Plus 1 power for you, plus 1 power for you, which can add up to a lot of points. I was thinking with Mary Jane, actually, even just playing a single Heimdall at the end of the game, moving all of your cards on board, which could easily move like 7 or 8 cards sometimes, that alone would make Mary Jane worth plus 8 power, because she's buffing each of those cards. So a single Heimdall means 8 extra power is possible here for Mary Jane. That makes her net output sort of an 11 power card. Could be, you know, could be even more though, because you've got a lot of turns before that. So if you structure your game in a way where you're moving things all throughout the game, whether that's through Madam Web that's just moving a card every single turn, stuff like Spider-Man Brand New Day that's moving itself alongside, say, hey, a Nightcrawler or a Nocturne, all these other cards that can do that. Mary Jane's just going to be stacking up buffs turn after turn. +1 here, +2 here, +8 down the road. I think there are scenarios where Mary Jane could easily add up to something like +15 extra points to your board, which is just crazy impactful for a 3-cost card. That is really big and offers a lot of opportunity. And much like Spider-Man Brand New Day, a lot of those buffs from Mary Jane are going to go on cards that really care about multiplying those buffs. Specifically, Multiple Man is a great example where when you're buffing Multiple Man, if he's moving every single turn because you're, moving him via Doctor Strange, Ghost Spider, etc., Mary Jane's going to keep giving him +1, so each new iteration of that Multiple Man on the next turn is going to be a little bit bigger again, and you just start scaling all of these buffs on another layer, or adding that extra +1 to Human Torch means the next time he moves, that's +2 power thanks to Mary Jane, which then becomes +4 because of his doubling effect, right? There are ways to just keep scaling and scaling. At the end of the day, this is a very high output buff that could keep hitting turn after turn and make Mary Jane quite competitive when it comes to total point output for 3-drops. It feels like she's going to rank among the very best options. So now let's talk about Aunt May. She is a 2/3 and another end of turn card. If you used a movable ability, give a movable card in your hand -1 cost and +2 power. So another way here to get a lot of extra points and a cost discount as well, increasing some of that flexibility, which is nice. And this is specifically looking at that movable keyword. We saw Spider-Man Brand New Day with that movable keyword. We also have cards like Nightcrawler, Nocturne, Vision, some other examples out there where you might be able to build a deck that is more specifically around the consistency of movable cards, as opposed to some of the more combo-oriented move decks using things like Multiple Man or Human Torch as your payoffs. If you're leaning into Aunt May as an enabler, you're probably going to want as high of a density of movable things as possible just to make sure that you're moving every turn so that her end of turn successfully activates. She meets that condition and it goes off, because when she does, that's really nice. After just 2 hits on this end of turn ability, right? She's basically paid for herself in cost. She costs 2, she's now discounted by 2, and she's worth an extra +4 power on top of her 3 base power. You're already looking at a card that reads a bit like a 0-cost 7 power card with additional upside possible. You could easily hit this on turns 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's 5 total possibilities. Now on turn 6, perhaps the discount and the extra power wouldn't matter very often in hand, unless you got a Dracula or something in the mix for that extra power. But nonetheless, there's probably like 4 good turns here on average where this could be a meaningful result. You may not always hit it all 4 turns, but even just 2 or 3 out of this, I think, does make Aunt May worth it. Just increasing that flexibility, letting you get bigger movable cards down sooner. Stuff like Vision, sometimes it feels like even though he can move every turn, sometimes that's hard because you often play him on turn 5 and then you don't have those extra turns to take advantage of that surprise factor or activations of stuff like Mary Jane. But now if you discount, for instance, your Vision down to a 4-cost card, thanks to Aunt May, then you're going to have that extra turn to keep moving Vision around and make him really surprising and benefit again from those extra move cards, whether that's something like a new Mary Jane or a classic example like a Kraven. So all in all, I think this is another fantastic end of turn ability here that can both put out points, but also increase flexibility, which increases opportunity on top of that. All in all, between the discount and the extra buff here on Aunt May, this does indeed look like another very potentially powerful enabler for move cards. So next up here, let's take a look at this cool new move deck that is basically a hybrid between moving and buffing, because really that's the theme of all 3 of these new cards this week, is fusing those 2 worlds together, caring about, power output, but also move synergies. We had another card last month with Jeff the Baby Dolphin that's exactly in that space as well. He is movable himself, to sync up with Aunt May, but also can just add raw power to those targets that care about it, like the Multiple Man, Human Torch, or Iska the Unbeaten. Each of those have ways to scale those buffs even further. We've also got a selection of movable cards here for Aunt May with Spider-Man Brand New Day, Jeff, and Spider-Punk. Those all have that movable keyword. That's still enough to make Aunt May worth it. For instance, you could just keep one of them in hand, something like Spider-Punk, kind of discount him a couple times, play yourself a nice 3/7 Spider-Punk, or excuse me, 1/7 Spider-Punk somewhere down the line for a big swing. At the end of the day, this is just going to be about creating those really big Multiple Mans and Human Torches, but also filling in the gaps with, I think, consistency, because everything could potentially just get a little bit of buffs here and there and start stacking up numbers off stuff like Jeff or Spider-Man Brand New Day. Also, just really flexible from a curve standpoint. This deck is rather affordable when you look here at the cost, topping out as at a 4 cost here with Iska the Unbeaten. Has some kind of individual win conditions. Iska can win locations all by herself. Human Torch, of course, can also win locations all by himself, but then also that strong baseline of power with stuff like a Multiple Man that can spread out some nice medium-sized threats often across multiple locations and just stack those up. Even things like Spider-Punk gives you a little bit of disruption with that debuff that can afflict your opponent's cards as well, limiting some of their output. So I am really excited to play a deck like this one that fuses these two worlds together. I'm excited for Spider-Man Brand New Day to just be the perfect glue that you can throw down at any point and net a few points here, a few points there. Mary Jane is sort of a powerhouse. I feel like they can just put out a lot of numbers that's going to make everything seem just like big and scary. And then Aunt May, that cost discount flexibility here too seems like it could be a surprise factor on top of all that. I would definitely like to experiment with lots of different potential move decks here. I think Heimdall is a really powerful card with Mary Jane, as we talked about in particular, and Aunt May could have a fully dedicated move deck. But if you're going to try to play all 3 of these cards together, as was my goal when designing this list, I think something like this makes a lot of sense. I think this one offers quite a bit of opportunity to win some big games and put out some surprisingly big numbers with otherwise, relatively low cost cards, which is always a cool space to be in. So this is the Move Buff Hybrid Spider-Man Brand New Day deck. So all that said, that wraps it up for my detailed look at all 3 new cards joining Marvel Snap this week as a part of the Spider-Man Brand New Day season. If you're interested in grabbing Spider-Man Brand New Day as a part of the Premium Pass, I think you should hit the Marvel Snap web shop. You can always go to shop.marvelsnap.com to grab that, or maybe get the Super Premium Pass for Mary Jane, or of course, lots of other bonuses or goodies. You can also pick up Aunt May as a part of the new weekly release Series 5 card this week. So all in all, thank you again for joining me. I hope you have a ton of fun with these new cards and in this new Marvel Snap season.